Hi, this is Eternal King here, bringing you another LOR video today. So I wanted to talk about some major standard meta shifts that are happening right now in the game, and most of them are quite positive. So what we're seeing overall is all of the aggro and mid-range beater shells that I've been complaining about have for the most part massively decreased in win rate. So one of the big contenders, of course, being Zed Gwen. Zed Gwen is now down to 52%. Good old Annie. Annie is down to around 52%. Annie Jin, kind of your standard burn shell. More, again, percentage reviews. We're also seeing, excuse me, I've got a lot of lists to go through here that I keep track of. Ramp. Elder Dragon Ramp is not a mid-range beater shell, but it is a ramp shell that does not do much. I never thought that this was an exceptionally good deck. It is currently sitting at 45%, meaning that you are better off simply ramping into Volibear and kind of dropping a lot of this Elder support package. That will get this deck back up to 50%, is to simply drop a lot of the Elder Dragon greed. Most of this junk can just be dropped. And just running it as the standard Volibear ramp shell. And you'll do better, you know. Most of the time, if I ever lose to ramp now, it's because they simply play She Who Wanders. And at the end of the day, in standard, since it's such a limited format, She Who Wanders is going to be one of the better things you can ramp into. A War Mother's Call tutoring She Who Wanders, that sort of thing is going to be far better than all of this junk. So this is down to 45%. So ramp is down. Aggro and mid-range beater shells are down. We've got some more lists to talk about. Riven Morgana is down to 53%, which is a really big drop for this deck from where it was. Before it was around 58%. Again, just kind of these slapping Morgana into an aggro mid-range beater shell and just trying to run that and having it be successful is now no longer a thing. Or as much of a thing. The format's far more dynamic now. Jinx down to 53%. Mono Jinx. And like, why was this ever a deck? It was literally just like one drop tempo stuff. And that was it. Like literally just dumping one drops and then swinging. And then that was winning a lot of games. So that's no longer the case. So if all of these decks are down, what is up? It's Mogwai's deck. So Mogwai was the first to think of Mordekaiser Mageseeker Inquisitor. He was the first one to see the value there. And this deck is up huge. This is probably the most competitive Morgana list in the game. And it's also the most competitive Mordekaiser list in the game by a large margin. And I think that this card is broken. Like, this card is nuts. Just the fact that it, challenges and then it trades with small things, but also gives the suppression. It's such a good value 4-drop. I think the best comparison to this card would be something like the 4-drop in Bandle City, where you get the 2/3 and you force your opponent to discard their highest cost card. Like, it's on that value level, but it's even better for tempo. So it's very, very strong. Why is this deck good? Well, removal package, right? Vengeance. Grasps is a 3 of. Soul Harvests. Hate Spikes is a 3 of. This is an actual control deck. It's basically chump creatures, your draw package, and then just, removing stuff. Using all of your chump creatures as removal, right? Your Hate Spike, plus the 3 of the Death's Grasp is so strong and standard compared to the other options that you don't have access to. And then the Soul Harvest, of course, 1 of a Crumble, 2 of a Vengeance. It's going to be very hard for any sort of aggressive or mid-range beater deck to get past this and kind of do what it wants to do. And we're seeing that it's just not happening. Mordekaiser is basically jamming Mageseeker on 4, your Chumpers on 1 and 2, and Morgana on 5, Mageseeker 4, Morgana 5, Chumpers, fast speed removal package, then finally your Mordekaiser, and then to kill your Morgana, and then resurrecting with Rekindler, and that's just going to be too much for most decks to deal with. So, at the end of the day, this is Majin Bey's ratioing and Majin Bey's card choices, but the concept, the idea, the thing that mattered went from Mogwai. And even a lot of the other ideas that he came up with, things like Deathless Senna, which was Mordekaiser Senna, that's competitive. you see Morgana Akshan. It's, not nearly as good as this list, but it's still like playable on some level. At least as playable as this terrible ramp shell. So it's like you can see that Mogwai's return to the game has affected Standard in a pretty massive way. We've gone from the game being simply aggro and mid-range beater shells to having viable control decks in Standard, a format that has generally shied away from control decks. And in fact, all of the other Mordekaiser lists that you've seen on Mastering Runeterra that weren't Mogwai's idea of the Mage Seeker, Inquisitor, and that sort of thing, those decks were unplayable. Every single Mordekaiser list that you saw on Mastering Runeterra prior to kind of Mogwai testing out these lists, these control lists, were unplayable. They were terrible. And both Deathless Senna and this one as being the much better option, we'll call it Deathless Inquisitor. Deathless Inquisitor is insane. It's exceptionally powerful. Yeah, big changes in Standard as a format. It's a lot more diverse and interesting than it used to be. Again, if you want to play your Zed Gwen or your Annie, you can. I just wouldn't recommend it. I play, like, you ask what I play. This is a deck that I built ages ago, which is Jarvan Illoy, and that still feels pretty good. And I made some tweaks for the new meta. And I play this a lot, and it drives people crazy. And so, like, that's the thing. Standard's cracking open a little bit. There's a little more variety, a few more options. If you want, I can talk about this deck at some point. I built this on Out of Cards ages ago, and it became one of the top decks in Standard. Because once again, what you see on Mastering Runeterra typically is that Majin or Alan will look at someone else's deck, get the idea for the deck, and then fix the ratioing to be more competitive, and then call it their own. But at the end of the day, the idea of the deck, that's the thing that matters. And that's when brewers, off-meta brewers like myself and Mogwai come in. Alright, this is Eternal King signing out. Standard is becoming a far more interesting and diverse format, but when you're playing on ladder, make sure you're paying attention to these sort of win rate changes that you're seeing here. Alright, take care.